I move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention?
This is
It
yourself,
is,
right?
we are now going into executive session. We'll be out at 8 o'clock.
If you give me
like to call this meeting back into order. It is 8:11 p.m., June 15th, 2015. Can I have a roll call, please?
Village President Collins.
Here.
Trustee Clark.
Here.
Trustee Davis Ford.
Here.
Trustee Levison.
Present.
Trustee Rosner.
Here.
Trustee Schnall.
Here.
Also present, Mr. Lewis, Village Administrator. Mr. Lerner, Deputy Village Administrator. Mr. Rother, Village Attorney, and myself, Chanel Smith, Deputy Village Clerk.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, to be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to this Village Hall Community Forum. As you may recall, and I provided this description in some of the marketing materials that we put out to the community, late last year, late in 2014 or so, as the Board of Trustees was moving forward with renovation, one of the things that the board decided to consider was also simultaneously and within a parallel path looking at adaptive reuse of Village Hall. An RFP was posted. We received responses early in the new year, and the board has been debating back and forth, having an opportunity to meet with the proposers, ask questions. Ultimately, we received a few of them. Some were eliminated right away. The Board of Trustees narrowed it down to two prospective tenants and buyers for Village Hall, one being a boutique hotel option, the other being a restaurant. As the board was having its individual meetings with the two proposers, we thought it was appropriate to welcome the community to come out, to hear directly from them, be able to submit comments to the Board of Trustees, and also ask any questions you may have. For the purposes of this meeting, initially, we had hoped that we would be able to share some more of the financial projections. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we will be, depending on the outcome of this meeting, potentially still in active negotiations with either one of the proposers. So for the time being, we will not be pulling up the financial projections. Again, this is not an easy decision either way. I did hear from some residents, you're going to save X million of dollars if you sell Village Hall. That's not the case. Obviously, we still have municipal operations to plan for. Whether we continue leasing where we are, or we build, or we find an alternative place to be. Obviously, not being able to share what the bids are and what the potential revenue is, whether it takes the form of taxes or a pilot, et cetera. None of that has been negotiated to date. So we're just looking forward to hearing back your feedback on what you see from the presenters. Is there anything that the Board of Trustees would like to add to that description?
Also, just making everyone aware that we're looking at all options, including the other choices that are before us.
That's a good point. So tonight you're going to hear for the adaptive reuse proposals. Obviously, we're not diving back in to the renovation discussions. We've had those presentations publicly before. Obviously, at the time that the board discusses it and shares its ultimate decision of which path to move forward in, we can recap again, but essentially one of the options obviously is continuing the path that was started quite some time ago, which is municipal renovations to maintain Village Hall for our municipal purposes. So you would see, if you looked at the floor plan, just a lot more modernized way for us to be able to service the community through our municipal functions in that space. We've moved very far within that process, and in the event that the board does not wish to move forward with an adaptive reuse, we will be awarding construction to the lowest bidder. And we had received those a couple months ago from pre-qualified bidders, so that the renovation component has moved very far in this process, and this is kind of the final way for us to share what the alternatives are. Anything else from that?
I think that's comprehensive.
Okay, fantastic. So just kind of the ground rules for tonight. Just by a show of hands, how many people plan to speak or ask questions? You can always add. Okay, so I think that based on that, I think we can agree that let's limit things to 3 minutes. Make sure everybody gets to speak once, and if we have time available at the end, we'd welcome people back to speak again. But let's just make sure that everybody gets heard once first. Each of the presenters will have 15 minutes. If you have questions, we don't want to get into a back and forth, so we're going to document all the questions, and by the end, we'll make sure to go through all the questions. If there are comments, obviously feel free to make any comments when you're at the microphone. Everybody okay with that? Great. So with that said, Mr. Lewis, will you introduce the first presenter?
Yeah, did we have an order? I know that.
South Orange Hotel Group will be
Okay.
going first.
Yeah, so the first group is, as what's been described as the boutique hotel. The entity is referred to as the South Orange Hotel Group. We'll invite up, you may have some people that I don't know. Certainly the one gentleman I know is Joe Riella. He's one of the principals. So, Joe, if you want to come up, and the gentleman you're with, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, so I'll allow you to introduce him, and then go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience. And
Good evening. My name is Joseph Riella. I am, of course, with the group that would like to build the hotel. This is my architect, David Rosen of the Rosen Group. He was
Sir,
the
if you're going to
architect-
face the audience, if you can keep the microphone close to you, because the television for the folks at home, they hear what you're saying from how closely you speak into the mic. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Again, my name is Joseph Riella. This is David Rosen of the Rosen Group. He was the architect that did the DeBarry Inn in Summit, New Jersey, which I own and operate with the group. We are a boutique hotel in Summit. We'd like to do the same exact thing here, replicate what we have there. We have a very successful business there. It has grown by leaps and bounds. We are constantly overflowing to the Grand Summit Hotel or to the Hilton. There is a need for another hotel in town. A brief history about myself. My family's been in the hotel business since 1954. My grandfather built the first motel at Newark Airport. It's underneath the toll booths at 14 now, under the turnpike. I've been in the business. My father was in the business. I'm in the business. I'm third generation. My two sons here in the audience are the fourth generation. My group includes Stoney Johnson, who many of you know is a South Orange resident, business proprietor in town, ice cream store, the Rickletons, all part of the whole South Orange inner business circle here. My builder is Chris Meyer, who can speak for himself in a bit. If need be, he has done Ritz-Carlton hotels. He has done, we do homes together, we do townhomes. We are proposing to build in Summit right now, and many other projects that he has done. I've owned 5 hotels in the past. I still own the Hudson Plaza, office buildings in Florida, and other properties that I won't bore you with. So my idea for the Summit, for the hotel here in South Orange is to build something, renovate the building as it is, of course, complying with the Historical Society regulations. I plan about a 30-room hotel. The plans here show about a 28-room. Those are just sketches right now. They're preliminary. We have to fine-tune them. The good thing is that on the 3 sides, the front streets and the parking lot, Mr. Rosen was able to, I'll let him speak on this, was able to utilize the windows, the doors exactly as they need be. So we're in good shape there. I would like to talk about the hotel. At first, when we were given the proposal, they asked us to, if we could live with 35 parking spaces. I said yes. I would be very happy to live with 35 parking spaces. What the hotel will do is will complement the progressive downtown redevelopment of South Orange. There's so much going on here. I want to be part of it very much. I grew up in West Orange, by the way. I'm very close to this area. I live in Summit, New Jersey now. With the new hotel, I'll bring 60 plus or minus new faces to the village every day. Those people hopefully will shop in your stores, will eat at your restaurants, will add some dynamics to the city and spend some money, new money that the city would not see with any other type of use that I can think of that would work for that building. It would help support this building. You can keep the people in town now that are staying out of town. My parking impact will be minimal. Many spaces during the day will be empty as the people are out doing business. My crowd at the DeBarry is mostly a business crowd, so there's no cars basically
Sir, I don't
there
mean
in the
to interrupt
daytime.
you again. Excuse me. The people, the viewing public at home, I know it seems like you're speaking to the crowd, but they need to hear you, so as close to the mic as you can.
Okay. The parking impact I just mentioned would be minimal, with most of the people not being there in the daytime. I do a business crowd at the DeBarry mostly. The cars aren't there. They'll be there at nighttime, overnight. But many of my customers arrive by car service. They arrive by train. They take public transportation. Case in point, I have 16 rooms at the DeBarry Inn. I have 11 parking spots. I've never had a problem. I won't say never, but once or twice in 5 years. Most of my customers don't even have cars. That's a wonderful thing. Or one car will serve 2 rooms. It'll be 2 couples or a family with grown children who want separate rooms. So the impact is small. One thing I really would like to stress, that South Orange is not a final destination. What happened in Newark Airport with a lot of the hotels there that are suffering is Newark became not a final destination anymore, where people moved out into the suburbs. They moved to the Short Hills Hilton to stay. They moved to Morristown, other places on Route 10, or away from Newark. So those hotels are hurting because it wasn't their final destination. You're on the train line. The train, no one really needs to get off in South Orange because there's no place to stay if you don't have immediate business here. Many of my customers at the DeBarry take the train every morning into Manhattan. They do their business. They'd rather stay out in the suburbs and take the train back at night. You'll see this happen in your town. I promise you'll see it. Seton Hall has expressed need for rooms, whether it be their 10,000 plus enrollment with graduate programs and students, and even high school students, and activities, sports activities, different teams coming in, whatever the event is, of course graduation, of course coming to visit the school. There's been a need for a hotel for South Orange for, I think, a long time. I actually proposed trying to build a hotel where Above is now. The restaurant Above, which is above the marketplace, many years ago, but back then South Orange was interested in a plan that did not include a hotel. I'm hoping the plan mindset has changed. I get a lot of my business also from the DeBarry, from Overlook Hospital. Here we would serve St. Barnabas. There's imaging centers that people need to stay outside of the hospital, but close because they have to go daily. I serve that need in Summit. I think you'll serve it here also. Of course, there's this building, which I've mentioned before. There's country clubs, catering facilities, Orange Lawn. A good friend of mine is a member and past president of Maplewood Country Club. He told me that they send $400,000 a year in business to the Hilton in Short Hills. Why not keep some of those people here? They can spend money in your town. They can make the town lively. It would be good for, I believe, for all the merchants would share. Of course, we would accept corporate accounts, as I do, which I have many, I won't mention them all. Mont Blanc Pens is one of them. Purina is another. Celanese is another. A lot of the new condos, apartments that are being built here, many of them are studios or one-bedrooms. If mom wants to come visit, but, would like to have her own place to stay, I think I'll be an asset to serve these new buildings that are, that are fantastic here in town. The new construction is amazing, and I believe there's a need for people to stay in town who can visit family and friends. Tourism. I never thought I'd see so much tourism, but with Expedia, Booking.com, all those hotel sites now, Orbitz. This morning I had a nice conversation with a gentleman from Palermo, Sicily, staying at the DeBarry. I asked him what he was doing in Summit, New Jersey. He said, well, I'm visiting New York. It's amazing. He found me from Palermo, Sicily. Wonderful, wonderful thing. We get a lot of tourism. South Orange will see tourism. The train line does it. The train station, of course, I can't reiterate enough about how it is not a final destination in South Orange. It will be if you have a hotel. I think I've covered everything that I'd like to cover. I'd be happy to hear any questions. Or David, do you have anything to say first?
Hi, as mentioned, I'm Dave Rosen, architect, a partner in the Rosen Group in Summit, and we had worked with Joe on the DeBarry Inn in Summit. And this building is such an iconic building in South Orange. What we're proposing is to bring the missing puzzle piece to South Orange. It's not another of something that's already here. It's providing that piece of having a small hotel that then brings people in for a variety of things, as Joe mentioned. It's important that this small hotel serves as your guest room so that when you have family that you love but you'd rather they stayed overnight a little bit further away, or if you have other guests, people who are coming to visit, it's nice to have a place that you can trust that's very centrally located, that they can easily get to, and from which they can get to the train station, they can get to restaurants, they can get to all of the facilities that are here in South Orange. And so this will be done while preserving the building. And more than just preserving the building, it's breathing new life into this building. This building from 1894 predates all of us. Even as I look out, I know that nobody's older than than this building. And it gives it a really nice community use. And it complements the uses that are already here. And as Joe mentioned, it doesn't pose a burden on parking. It doesn't compete with restaurants, stores, and so on. It provides additional sources of revenue for the restaurants. The people who come to this hotel will use the restaurants because we don't have a restaurant in this. It's not a big chain hotel out on the highway. This is a very personal, community-based hotel that will be a huge asset to South Orange. And to have it in such a great location in an iconic building with the ability to make this building revived, and all the renovations would be done in compliance with the Secretary of the Interior's standards for historic preservation. It's really it's a wonderful use, and I hope that everybody here gets to either come and stay, because there are even people, for example, in Summit who can stay at the DeBarry, but mostly it's their guests, it's their friends, there are business people, there are people who are visiting Overlook Hospital, as Joe mentioned. There are a lot of sources, and it's really surprising that almost every small town, medium-sized city has some kind of hotel. South Orange would really benefit from having this. So, if you'd like to would you like to take questions?
We were actually going to hold that to
Fine.
the end so that people, in case they have questions for both groups,
Great.
we can capture them at the same time. Did you have some visuals you wanted to show people?
Well,
I know-
what we have here are the plans of the existing building and then some sketches diagramming how the new rooms could be laid out. As Joe mentioned, there are 28 rooms. They're not cookie cutter. They're not all the same. They're meant to work within this building. They're meant to have individuality and personality and character. And so we've just got the diagrams of showing the reception area. The front door remains as the front door. And coming in, there's a reception area, there's an office, and so on. And then the rest of the space is divided up into nice rooms, each, of course, with their own nice bathroom and closets and all of those things that one would expect. And on the second floor, it's a similar kind of layout. It's surprising how well this building can be adapted to a hotel. Joe mentioned that we can accommodate all of the preservation goals of preserving the outside of the building. Inside has already been gutted, which makes it a little easier for us because there's not that much historic fabric left on the inside. The important thing is that the exterior will be the same iconic building that it's really the postcard shot of South Orange. So we have those, and then we had some pictures from the DeBarry Inn. It's very difficult to see, but even if you go online, you can see a lot of those things. That was a building that was really in need of renovation and in need of somebody to really care for it. And Joe and his group have done that. And since you gave us 15 minutes, we are exactly on 15 minutes, and I'll put this down. And thank you for the opportunity to present before you, and especially before you as well. Thank you. Thank you.
DeBary is spelled D-E-B-A-R-Y, is that correct?
Yes, it's a capital
So
B.
for anybody on your smartphones, capital D-E, capital B-A-R-Y, I don't think it matters on Google, in Summit, New Jersey, and you can see some of the examples of the work that these gentlemen have done. So thank you. Mr. Lewis, can you introduce the next group?
The next group, if they'd like to join us, is Landmark Development, the restaurateurs. Tonight, of those that I recognize and know, is the principal, Frank Cretella, and their counsel, Elnardo Webster. And I don't know if you have anyone else you want to introduce, but I'll leave that to you. All right, thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Elnardo Webster. This is Frank Cretella. He's the co-owner and principal of Landmark with his wife, Jeannie Cretella. We've previously sent in a link to a couple of YouTube videos that we think is a good representation of what Frank has been doing over the last 25, 30 years. I think that's it. It starts to repeat. And we have one other video that talks a little bit about the South Orange project directly. But I would invite the board and members of the public to visit the Landmark's YouTube channel. It's Landmark Hospitality, and you'll see that they have many of the clips that you saw tonight were simply clips from their production team, and you can get a feel. There are probably 30 or 40 different videos that are part of their YouTube channel. And also, just speaking with Frank earlier, it was a little bit difficult for some folks in the audience to see the presentation. So by tomorrow evening, on the Landmark Hospitality website, we'll have the presentation posted for folks to see. And we'll have a little bit of the pictures in the presentation that we're making tonight so that folks can see both videos and the presentation. They'll be on our website by tomorrow evening.
And for the viewing public at home, right now what you can go to is, and the website is landmarkhospitality.com if you're following along and checking out pictures.
And if you want to play the second video, then Frank's going to talk to you about his vision.
I only have one video.
Okay, I sent a supplemental email that has... Okay. While you dig it up.
Do you want to come over here and you can do it while you talk?
Yeah. Okay.
Hello, everybody. I am Frank Cortella. I am principal of Landmark Hospitality. Me and my wife, Jeannie, started the company. My daughter just graduated college and joined the company. We're truly a family-owned business. All the facilities that you saw today that came up on the screen are facilities that we still own and operate. Many of the ones that talked about historic approval have been completed and are operating. We tend to be successful in this business, and a lot of people know that the restaurant business is a difficult business. We're very passionate about it. We love what we do. And I think that really what makes us unique is that we have many of our employees, and we're up over 600 employees now, have been with us from the start. Every time we open up a new operation, we put our most effort in hiring the right people. All our people have that same common goal. We try to create memories. And we do a lot of events. A big part of our business are events. And even at Village Hall, the second floor will house events, mostly corporate. And it's easier to make a memory at an event. But we strive to make memories, whether people are standing at the bar or whether people are sitting down for dinner for two or entertaining clients. So I honestly think that people are what make us successful in our business. We were excited, obviously, about Village Hall. All of our properties are kind of unique in their locations. Many of them are landmarks. But, we started Landmark Hospitality not because we wanted to develop landmarks. We started Landmark Hospitality because we felt that if we did things right, created beautiful spaces that were kind of timeless, and again, had the right people there, that we would create places that would survive and live on for well past what a normal life expectancy is of a restaurant. And that's proven to be true. Liberty House is 14 years old, very successful place, constantly grows. Stonehouse, again, all of our properties have that special spark. And I would have to say Village Hall obviously fits that model. It's a spectacular building, just needs some love. We have experience in not only going through the process with SHPO, which we do in-house, because I have a real estate company and a construction company. So we're familiar with that process. We've done it numerous times. And it's a process that we enjoy. There's a collaboration. We work with many harbor boards, historic boards throughout the state, Pennsylvania, New York. And it's something that is a process, but it's a process that we like and we're good at it. So I think that people that are concerned about how that renovation would go, should stay concerned, but, rest assured that the end result will be something that everybody would be proud of. Right now, we, in the city of Plainfield, probably finished 5 historic properties. We have 3 more SHPO applications going in this year. Hotel du Village, where they showed the picture, will be completed in July. That's another historic property from the 1800s. So we definitely know how to go through that process and build beautiful places that are going to be here forever. As far as building business, our businesses aren't the type that kind of, shoot through the sky the day one that we open. We tend to build a business, year over year over year, and we build it through repeat clientele. We build it through being part of the neighborhood. If you take Liberty House, which a lot of people would say, is a tourist attraction because of the views, you're in a park, and we took that property, and that property has such strong weekday business, and you would say, oh, it's going to be dead in January because it's seasonal on the water. And we have our core customers that continue to come back. We want to do the same here. We're part of the neighborhood. We have programs. HUG is Help Us Give. We have 3 tables in every restaurant, 10% of the sales, which accumulates to be a lot of money. We give back to organizations in that community. In many cases, the waiters from that location are part of the committee that help pick those charities that we give back to. We try, even though our places are big, we're neighborhood places. You want to play the video, or?
We're not ready yet, Frank.
Okay. So, all right, I'll keep going. All right, what else? Let's see. So the plan itself, obviously we want to restore the exterior to what it was. I really want to add some outside seating because I feel that adds a vibrancy to that corner. Right now that corner, and even in its past use, doesn't get a lot of activity. Especially doesn't get a lot of activity, after 4 or 5 o'clock. So I want to add outside seating. I want to open up those garages. Those garages historically have had some great carriage doors on them. I want to do it again. I want it so you could see into the kitchen. I want to build a concept that is a kind of like a tavern with some great finishes. It's not going to be intimidating, but it's going to be a tavern with some fine finishes in it. I want to have a menu that you would find in any great tavern. Big on raw bar, big on steaks and chops. You can get a burger if you want it. I want to have a selection of dark liquors on a back bar that, when people walk in are impressed by it. Upstairs, we're going to have some meeting rooms so that we could not only take care of the meetings that are required in South Orange, but to attract regionally where people could have business meetings here in the upstairs rooms. Now, the way the upstairs is configured, I could do 4 small corporate events, or on a weekend, the 3 rooms could be the cocktail area where, let's say if you're doing a wedding, you could do a wedding for 125, have cocktails, and then move over. I would like to see, even in the area by the garages, I'd like to see that opened up for some additional outdoor seating. If you look at all our places, we're big on creating that indoor-outdoor feel. Obviously, we're not going to create openings in the side of an historic building, but we want to maximize where we can so that people can enjoy in season, dining outside. The kitchen that we propose would be an open kitchen. I firmly believe when possible I do an open kitchen because people dine out now, not just for the food and to socialize, but it's a bit of entertainment. And I think having an open kitchen and seeing your food prepared adds to that excitement, you know, as well as, of course, the raw bar being out on display in the restaurant. I've worked with several architects in the course of my career. Some better than others. The architect here is somebody who I've done the last 2 projects with. Feel very confident with him.
We're ready to go.
Okay.
Good job.
Do you know any jokes, Frank?
Narrate. The police department then moved Village Hall. The building was added to the New Jersey Register of Historic Places in December 8th, 1975, and added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1976. This is the proposed first floor. You can see entrance, bar. You might want to pause it, just let people take a look at it real quick. You want to describe a little bit about what you've laid out here?
This is really a placeholder for the final design. In all our designs, we like to use banquette seating, which kind of helps zone out the restaurant, creates a little more comfort. This doesn't show it. And, the bar here, we wanted a sizable bar, obviously being a tavern, and we feel at lunchtime a lot of people from work would eat at the bar, but we're not sold on the shape. We do a lot with some high-top seatings mixed in, to add some interest. But basically, it was just to give a roundabout on the capacity. Yeah. Now, the second floor, if you see those round tables there, those round tables represent tables of 10. I think it's seating for 125. The 3 spaces across the way that are in the golden color, those are really meeting rooms. If you were to do an event, a social event that required, or even let's say a corporate event, but it would be more of a gala where you would have cocktails in one room, and then you would move over across the hall to the other for your sit down. So we rarely see that all rooms would be used at once, but we do see the smaller rooms being very active. We have a strong marketing ability. We have a marketing department. We do all social. We have salespeople that have clients that book across all our places for corporate. We have a centralized call center to take in leads, so we maximize the sales. So we feel we could really build a business here kind of regionally, attracting corporations to do events here. We just did some team building events at a new property that we bought, and that property happens to have a wood burning oven, so part of the team building was everybody made their own pizzas. We've had cocktail classes for the corporation, so we try to add in components to keep those events interesting and to be competitive against others. This is a little difficult to see, but these are the image boards that kind of gives you, and I have some handouts I could give, but the image boards basically try to give you the feel of what the restaurant would be. So we're dealing with, natural woods, we're dealing with stone. You have here the image of a back bar, the image of an open kitchen, all the components that we want to incorporate in the final design. Again, more images of dining, some light fixtures, communal tables, some ceiling plans. Again, this will be online, and I do have some handouts. But I have to say, as a company, we really do high design, but design that makes people feel comfortable. I know some restaurateurs that want to create an environment where people feel a little uneasy when they walk in and uncertain. We go the other way around, and we also design the facilities so that there's different areas for them to experience at different times. You know, whether it be a chef table, which we would do here. One of our locations, we have a water table where basically the food is floated in wooden bowls around, kind of like a liquid lazy Susan. I mean, so we create some cool opportunities for people to entertain.
I think that's our 15 minutes.
Yes.
A little more. We're going to sit down, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. So just to recap for the folks who may have arrived a little bit late, we did a little show of hands to see how many people would like to speak, just to make sure that we can capture everybody's comments and questions. We're going to wait to the end to address all the questions at once and pull up the proposers if there's anything specific to them. So if we just want to form a line over here as somebody speaks, somebody else can come on up, and there's really no formal aspect to this. Yeah, I'm sorry, right at the front. Just your name and your address, and Mr. Lerner will have the 3-minute timer up here. So whoever would like to start.
Hello, Karen Marlowe, 339 Academy Street. I'm the president of the South Orange Historical and Preservation Society. I'm also a member of the Historic Preservation Commission, but I'm here to speak on my own because I haven't been authorized to speak for my groups. I believe that adaptive reuse is historic preservation. And I believe that if these proposals have been vetted and are reasonable and can provide something to the village, then they should be considered. I'm not here to rehash the keeping the village hall for village purposes because that's not what this is about. However, I do want to stress that this selling Village Hall doesn't eliminate all the other properties that everybody says, oh, well, we have to sell Village Hall because we have this property and this property that we have to renovate. Well, when that comes up, you're still going to have those properties to renovate, and that's something that you have to consider. But historic preservation and adaptive reuse is important, and I think that given the history of village management of properties, might be a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Amy Don, 521 Center Street, South Orange, past president of the Montrose Park Historic District Association, and I, like Karen, sit on the Historic Preservation Commission, and I'm speaking personally on my own behalf, but I do want to comment that this is a direct opposite of what the commission recommended, which is that the building should stay serving as the municipal buildings, as the iconic building that represents South Orange. I have the perfect location for both the hotel and the restaurant. We have a school building called Mary Lawn on Scotland Road, which now stands empty. And it has a big ballroom that would be perfect for a restaurant, weddings, has several floors, it has a complete basement, and it's in excellent shape. I would like to say that although this restaurateur may have a successful history, there are many restaurants that fail. Boutique hotels need space, and restaurants need space and parking as well. And I believe strongly that there's insufficient parking at the corner of South Orange at Scotland Road. Secondly, I'd like to also point out that in December 8th, 1975, a group of residents in South Orange came together to place the Village Hall on the state and national register, and this preserved Village Hall in 1975. I believe many of us stand here today stating again that we feel Village Hall should be preserved for its original purpose. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt Glass. I live at 252 Conway Court, and I own a Vintage, which is a company at 18 South Orange Avenue. I'm also the volunteer chair of the South Orange Village Center Alliance, but similarly, I don't speak on behalf of the organization. We will actually be discussing this topic at our board meeting on Wednesday morning, and we'll provide you with what we come up with as a board. I have to say that first, I'm so thrilled that two amazing organizations like this have found interest in South Orange. In a building that I care very much about. I also want to mention that when I've been involved as a volunteer for about 10 years, and when Village Hall operations moved out across the street, I thought absolutely it will come back. That's what it belongs. It belongs there. I am not a fan of 76 South Orange Avenue. I can't believe it was built when it was built. Talk about preservation. But I have seen since that it actually works okay as the hub of Village administration. I also think that the way the Village interacts with the public is very different now, with as much that's done online. But most of all, both from a personal point of view of having 13 employees here, of being a resident here, and wanting to see all of the village succeed, I do see a gap at the corner. We're trying to help businesses that lead up towards Rite Aid. And right now, with Village Hall there, as one of the gentlemen mentioned, at about 4:30 p.m., not much happens at that corner. Either of these proposals would provide great life to a corner that desperately needs it, and hopefully would continue that life up towards Rite Aid and up all the way to Seton Hall. So I wholeheartedly agree that adaptive reuse, if done in the correct way, is vital. And that building that has such a long history of service would have new history of service, and that we as a village could use this influx of life, this influx of new partners who will be part of our community. I was impressed with both groups, that they are not giant corporations. They show success. We've had the most success with organizations that have come into town who have success someplace else. If you look at Tito's Burritos, if you look at Mara's, just getting off their feet. But these people aren't starting with South Orange. And in both of these situations, that would be the case here. So on behalf of me, and as I said, we'll let you know what our board decides on Wednesday, I think that the adaptive reuse of either of these proposals would be wonderful. I do have one question for the gentleman from the hotel as to what they would plan on doing with the meeting hall upstairs. I'm curious. It sounds like that the restaurant would reuse it as a catering hall, event hall, which would keep it at its current character, and I was curious as to what the hotel would do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Maureen Gammon, 397 Charlton Avenue, in the Montrose Park section of South Orange, and I'm currently president of Montrose Park Historic District Association. I speak for myself, but also with current members of our board, with the exception of Steve Schnall, who recluses himself. But we support the sale of Village Hall to a private entity as long as the integrity of the historic building is maintained. The historical significance of its architecture is the exterior, not the interior. It's a landmark building and should remain so, but its purpose should be in keeping with the times. South Orange infrastructure is failing in so many ways, and the cost of improving our public buildings, Connaught, Baird, the library, the police department, the Department of Public Works, not to mention our roads, is daunting, especially for a small town supported predominantly by residential estate taxes. These taxes are some of the highest in the region and the nation, and we continue to see some of our homes come off our tax records. We've heard two fabulous viable projects where Village Hall will be restored by those who have experience in this type of project and have a considerable investment in its success. It is time to make a responsible decision to have this building restored and house a new business which will provide vibrancy to our downtown, attract new businesses, and connect the east and the west sections of our town as well as generating income. All over the country, historic buildings have been repurposed as government services are consolidated, and these services are accessed remotely. We just don't need this amount of space. If the BOT move to rebuild the Village Hall for municipal use, we shall have a custom build with a cost of excess of $6 million. In not too many years, when we do not need the space, the design will be too specific to make it marketable, and will probably still have considerable debt, and will have burgeoning maintenance costs. In other words, an albatross around our necks for all the residents. I am firmly excited about the new prospects of having something in Village Hall.
Thank you.
Good evening. Adrian Schwal. I own Precision Building and Construction in Bridgewater, New Jersey.
Can you speak into the mic,
I own
please?
Precision Building and Construction in Bridgewater, New Jersey. And I mostly have questions. One of them being for the restaurant, has anybody taken into consideration if they have a 125-person wedding where the parking will happen? And I also have to say, if you're having a tavern in the middle of a town, has the police presence been consulted? And also, how much does a liquor license in South Orange for that building cost? I also wanted to ask which buildings that the landmark organization restored are landmarks, actually.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, they said that they restored landmarks, so I want to know what buildings are landmarks. And also for the hotel, I've traveled to cities all over the country, and my only comment is, in major cities, I think people stay for the major city, not go out to the suburbs and take a train. So I disagreed with that argument. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leslie Pagani, 10 Hart Drive.
You can pull it down.
10 Hart Drive, South Orange resident, and a business owner. I own Bunny Sports Bar in South Orange. One of the things that I've seen throughout the years as a lifetime resident is parking. We lost New Jersey Transit lot where we could have owned it, the ownership there, and we could have controlled it. You've got a parking lot on the side of that building. If we can maintain the control and do a lease arrangement somehow, I don't know if that was talked about in the very beginning of the meeting, I missed it, but then we could do a deck, we could, whatever we wanted to do, it would still be in our village's control, rather than being sold to an entity who may not be here, or whatever, but it's something, we have a parking authority, it's valuable. It's valuable to all the business people in the town and the commuters or shoppers, but it's so valuable. Please, if we can maintain the control of that lot and do whatever leasing you want to do, as Transit does with us, and you have to bid for that leasing or bid for those parking spaces. It's very important. Again, that's my take.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Bob Zuckerman, 324 Meeker Street. Like many of the residents before me who are parts of organizations, I should state that I am the executive director of the South Orange Village Center Alliance, but like my chair, I'm not speaking, I'm speaking in my own capacity as a resident of South Orange. First, I wanted to ask Frank where I can buy the soundtrack for the for the videos, because it's really helped to move it along, you know. No, but in all seriousness, I want to say that I consider myself a preservationist. When I lived in New York City, I was very involved in historic preservation efforts there, and I'm very happy to hear that no matter what happens to this building, that the exterior will be restored to its former glory and luster, and that's very important. I've heard from some people who say, well, we don't. I really wouldn't care if the building was torn down. I would. I think that would be a travesty. The building should be restored. But in terms of the actual use, what's inside, I agree with many of the other speakers before me that although it was the seat of Village Hall for many, many years, I don't think that it necessarily has to remain that. I think that Village Hall works where it is. Our office is in the Village Hall complex, and while we may not stay at 76 South Orange forever, there could be other places eventually where we might go. I definitely don't think that the Village Hall building needs to be the seat of Village Hall. We did a study last year. We talked about it. We surveyed 2,000 people, 1,000 residents and commuters, and then 1,000 Seton Hall students and people from the Seton Hall community. And restaurants actually came up as one of the 4 main uses that people are looking for. I've heard from some say, oh, well, we have plenty of restaurants, and we have some great restaurants. Bunny's is one of them. But in my opinion, if you have a good, solid operation, you can never have too many good restaurants, especially one that sounds like it would be a destination restaurant. And as far as the hotel goes, while that did not come up in the survey as a use that people were looking for, that's not surprising given that residents wouldn't necessarily think that we need a hotel here. But I've heard from a number of people that a hotel would be welcome here between the Seton Hall community and just the fact that there are very few hotels in the general area. So I think that would be a good use. And then the last thing, I just want to echo what Matt said earlier about that block between Village Hall and Rite Aid being sort of the toughest block for us to recruit good retail tenants. It's up on a hill, and it's further from this station. So this would be a good center, a good anchor for that block as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rob Sandow. I reside at 69 South Center Street. As others have said, just full disclosure, I'm a past president of the Tuxedo Park Association. I sit here on the board of SOPAC. I don't speak for any of those organizations. I speak for myself tonight. I'm a supporter of the restoration of the historic Village Hall, but its use case should be something significantly more valuable to the village than office space. It's a beautiful building, and office space is just not the right use for that building. Taken one at a time, the renovation of any of our village-owned buildings can be rationalized with a building-specific use case. In this case, the construction of offices for village staff and the main meeting room. However, what that precludes is discussing the elephant in the room, which we all know about. And that elephant in the room is that we have more than just Village Hall that requires renovations. We have the police headquarters, we have the Connect building, the Baird, we have the library. Taking those 4 and the estimates and other numbers I've heard floated around for those 4 are $30 million. Okay? Add Village Hall on top of that, we have $6 more million that we haven't yet spent. On top of the $1 million or so that we have spent, and it's likely to go higher when you consider change orders and scope creep that we all know happens. I'm not saying that those costs automatically preclude that these projects should happen. I'm saying that we need a master plan for municipal office space, or for municipal space in general, and we need to know what we need before we commit. How much space and in what configurations the village requires. What's the ideal municipal or non-municipal space for each of the properties we have? What's the market value of each property? Are there other alternatives that we haven't thought about, or maybe that we have thought about? Like, for example, right now we're using 76 South Orange Avenue. Right now we're using SOPAC. And they are functioning very well in combination as a Village Hall alternative. What are the costs and or the savings to the village for the various alternatives for each building? Village Hall right now is the most urgent of these, but also, to me, the most obvious. It's already been gutted. Asbestos remediation has been done, and it's construction ready. It already has viable bidders. It's already in the physical location that is surrounded on both sides by a retail corridor. Finishing the renovation by ourselves is likely to cost $6 million additional dollars, and when we're done, it's just office space. Beyond the lobby and the meeting room, the majority of the villagers will never see it. Therefore, I support its sale for one of the proposed uses. I think both of the presentations were great, and I think that either one would be a better use for this building and get it back on the tax rolls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, George Berkeley. I live at 28 West 3rd Street in South Orange. I also have a business in town. Village Hall, love it. Really great place. Needs to be something more than Village Hall. Both of these proposals, I love them both. The restaurant, great idea. I'd love to see a courtside view or a topside view of the city from the top of the tower. I just recently, and I'm not talking about this from my business point of view, just this week I had a family event where we had family come in from France for a family thing. 2 were coming, 6 showed up. I live in an apartment building, 28 West 3rd Street, the Gaslight Commons. Guess what? We're looking for places to park people. It just didn't work out. Of the 2 proposals, restaurants, we ate at Bunny's, we ate at the Gaslight, we ate at Rickleton's. We've been all around the town while they were here. They all slept on the floor in my living room. We need a hotel. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I just think it's a really great idea to get rid of Town Hall. I work with Town Hall a lot. Where they are now is much more efficient than where they were 2 years ago. And let's move forward, folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Ben Salmon, 325 Meeker Street. I'm a resident, a business owner, and I serve as the vice chair in the Village Center Alliance, although I speak for myself tonight. I'm astounded. I've really been concerned about the renovation of Village Hall because we are looking at putting in $6, $7, $8 million more for a building that, when we're done, probably couldn't possibly ever be worth more than $4 million. It just seems like an odd investment. But I love Village Hall, and I, want that building. I mean, it's right there. I want it to stay here forever. And I, while I really doubted the expense, I doubted that it could be anything else. And I am astounded because I did not expect to see one good proposal tonight. I didn't think that we would really get any good proposals from the very beginning. If we got someone who had a good vision and was qualified, I would have been blown away. And we got 2 of them, and it's really 2 amazing companies that want to invest in our town and have a track record of doing exactly what they need to do. And frankly, a track record that we don't have. If you look at our 2 biggest projects that we've done recently, SOPAC and the Firehouse, they were either millions of dollars over, years late, or both. And, this time's different. We have, different staff. We've learned from our mistakes, but insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We have the best of every case now where we can maintain this beautiful building and we can actually connect the east and west sides of downtown, and we can make our town more robust, which is, as a business owner, is what I need. In one way or the other, whether as a hotel or a restaurant. It makes perfect sense to me. And, Village Hall didn't start as Village Hall. Before that, I believe it was the police department. I think before that, it was something else. And before that, I think probably horses, ate on the grass. Things move forward. The world progresses. And I look with an eye to the past, and I'm sorry to, I appreciate what we had, and I love that we can progress and move forward while still keeping the building. I'm really excited, and I think I think Village Hall is ready for a new steward, and I can't wait to find out more about which one it's going to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Anel DeSisto. I live in Flemington, New Jersey. I'm also a project manager at Precision Building and Construction. And I'm an architect by training, and I have 15 years in the historic preservation industry. I wanted to just point out a couple of items for you to consider as you're considering your proposals, that if you were to choose the redevelopment options, to caution you against, the architects to make sure that they understand how to preserve a building. Currently, the architects who have prepared the plans for the rehabilitation are historic preservation architects, and they are respecting the exterior of the building. They have also already vetted those plans with the State Historic Preservation Office. They are through the approvals process, and as your president pointed out earlier, you have viable bids on the table, and within a year, perhaps a little longer, by the time the construction work starts, that building can be reused again. The process is very likely to take a lot longer if you were to go down the road of the redevelopment plans. I didn't hear either of those companies state whether they have completed a financial analysis of the feasibility of turning these plans into something that's economically viable by the town. What's their return on investment? Don't know whether that's been presented to you or whether it's not yet available to the public, but this is an important part of the process. As I said, I live in Flemington. If any of you know the Union Hotel in Flemington, it has been vacant since 2009. In 2010, the Borough of Flemington decided to work with redevelopers for that property. They are now on the cusp of turning down a second round of developers 5 years later, and that building is still empty, and nothing has happened. So please think of your timeline, how long you want to wait for something to happen with this building, or whether you want to see it reused in a year from now. Thank you.
Stuart Wainberg, 75 South Orange Avenue. I want to confess that I was a skeptic when this process started, but I want to commend you because I don't think you can improve yourselves unless you dare to explore the potential. And I think you've taken the risk, and you've come up with some interesting opportunities for the town, and I give you a lot of credit for simply doing that. I don't think there's a great chance that the exterior of the building is going to lose its beauty, and that this town, this community, will allow the historic significance of the building to be put at risk. So the real question is, what's the goal of the town? And if the goal of the town is to create a vibrant business core for the community that can be provide services and goods for the town and be a tax rateable, then you need vibrant businesses. There's no vibrant business that can do more for the town than a restaurant. This is, after all, a restaurant community. On an ounce-per-ounce basis, square-foot basis, a restaurant can produce more than any other business, and a restaurant also has the ability to stimulate other restaurants, because the way that goes is, if this is known as a restaurant community, more restaurants will come in. So there's absolutely no question that the best use for the community is a successful restaurant. Unfortunately, with that comes traffic. So I would say to you that I'm not sure the numbers work out. A successful restaurant here if the other hotel was saying 35 parking spaces and I don't know how many seats they're going to have, I can envision hundreds of cars potentially coming to their use. The numbers don't really add up to me, but I haven't scrutinized the proposal. So I would simply say to you that, again, the best thing for the community, in my opinion, as a business to stimulate activity in the downtown is a restaurant. The only caveat is parking. If it's a dinner-based restaurant, that's probably better than anything during the day, because in my building and other buildings we have office users. There's a shortage of parking during the day. At least the concept proposed would generate traffic at a time that's less intense for everyone else. So my building and other office buildings would be able to have parking during the day, and if they're a steak, seafood concept that's busy nights and weekends, I see that being as a fit. I would just caution you on the parking. And again, I thank you and commend you for your for daring to be better, which is important. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Douglas Newman. I live in South Orange for 26 years, 341 North Wyoming Avenue. And in the spirit of disclosure, I served on this board with half of it, but I don't represent their views this evening. You now have before you an important decision whether to renovate a badly deteriorated municipal building at tremendous cost or support its adaptive reuse to contribute to the growing vitality of our central business district. And because Village Hall is on the National Register of Historic Places, your decision has even greater import. Your decision is not simply about the physical footprint of our town's government. It's about how you ensure that its unique historic character is preserved. Tonight, I'd like to address both of these questions and urge you to support adaptive reuse of Village Hall for the benefit of South Orange. For a long time, well-run municipal governments have been forced to find ways to do more with less. Why? Because escalating operating costs and New Jersey's Byzantine tax structure have driven up property taxes to the point of making it difficult to stay in New Jersey. And for South Orange residents, high county taxes, less than 10% of our tax ratables being paid by commercial ratables, and our small size have driven up property taxes to the point of making it impossible for many to stay in this village. In 2014, South Orange's effective tax rate approached 3.3%, a rate now competing with homeowners' mortgage interest rates. For a long time, large edifices have symbolized the power, importance, and accessibility of our government. Today, however, I'd like to posit that these qualities are defined not by the size of our buildings, but by the ingenuity and resourcefulness of our employees and officials. If you truly want to improve your constituents' lives, you truly want to be seen as champions of accessibility, then I urge you to think differently about your roles. If South Orange's government devoted a fraction of the time, effort, and cost it's devoted and will devote to this massive renovation, instead to improving constituent access and streamlining how our lives intersect villages' services, our municipal government will stand head and shoulders above every town in the region and beyond. When Bloomberg became New York's mayor, he implemented NYC 311, a central number to access government. In a short period of time, 28 million people contacted NYC 311. That's 3.5 contacts per resident in New York. I doubt very many visitors have visited City Hall in New York City. And certainly in South Orange, how many residents do you think visit City Hall or our Village Hall or the offices that the town now occupies? When I served as village president during 2007 to 11, countless people shared with me their stories about their frustration dealing with the village's bureaucracy and process, and others shared with me exemplary experiences they had with other institutions that streamlined, automated their process, typically 24/7 remote access. Yet no one, frankly, ever mentioned to me the benefits and pleasures of coming to Village Hall.
10 seconds.
With respect to preservation, I urge you to think differently, okay? You've heard two proposals this evening that are well vetted and well thought out, and I think either one of them could work for the village. So I urge you to consider adaptive reuse in lieu of continuing this process of building and maintaining larger buildings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Chandros, 108 West Montrose Avenue. First of all, I want to commend the village president for having been the only person to show the courage to stand up a year ago and push the idea of dropping this nonsensical refurbishment for the purpose of village government. I think without that, we'd be looking at village government being back in that building. I personally think that you have two good proposals. It's regrettable that neither of them presented any financial information. So we really don't know, A, does one or both of them have the wherewithal to fund this project, where they're going to get the money. Secondly, how much they think it will cost, how long it will take, just physically forgetting about the state bureaucracy with historic preservation. and we don't know anything about what kind of a tax rateable we'll get out of this. It would obviously make a very big difference, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of many other people in this town, as to see exactly how many tax dollars we're going to get out of either of those uses. If we don't get very many, that colors my feeling about what we should do. So I think we need to go forward, and we need to get some financial information from both of these groups, exactly what their financial footings look like, where they're going to come up with the money to fund these projects, how much of what the taxpayers in this town have already expended will come back to us, and how much of an increase in the tax rateables we're going to get. Because otherwise, as a village resident, I can't make a decision which idea I would prefer. I mean, obviously, there are pluses and minuses for both ideas. A hotel is a less active use. It's not going to have big crowds at any point in time. I don't know what the viability of a hotel in South Orange is. Quite frankly, I have some questions about that, but I'm perfectly willing to be persuaded about it. Small hotels have high fixed costs per room. They depend on high occupancy rates. I don't know anything about the occupancy rate of the hotel that they run in Summit. I hear a lot of talk about, well, it's a wonderful project and people are there all the time. But in the hotel business, it's all about the occupancy rate, and that depends on both the room rate and the number of rooms that are actually rented. So I really think we need a lot more information than we've gotten tonight. I hope that information will be forthcoming as soon as possible to the board and to the public so that the public can speak out and make a decision as to where it stands. Meanwhile, as I said, I think either one is a great idea relative to putting village offices back in there and leaving it half empty. Thank you.
Good evening. Jim Ankner, 147 Ralston Avenue in South Orange. Former president of Montrose Park Historic District Association. I don't represent the association now, but I am very much supportive of adaptive reuse. I thought the proposals today were fantastic. I do agree we need to learn more, but I wholeheartedly support pursuing adaptive reuse. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Michael Miner. I live here in South Orange at 12 Brenda Road. I do some volunteering for Matt and Bob with Playday, and I sit on in the CRC and South Orange CERT, but I don't speak for any of those organizations. I speak for Lindsay Josephine, my 10-year-old, and Maximilian and Marshall, who live here and who go to school here. Marshall will be entering kindergarten, which means I won't be paying for preschool anymore. We came here 10 years ago from Manhattan, which many of my friends who sit here also did. And we came here because we wanted to charter something new for our families and the families that we didn't have yet. And we've done that. And there are complaints about the taxes, but we also know through our involvement that there are things that this group can do and there are things that this group can't do. And I'm becoming more unsatisfied as I see this group and I see this leadership, that I'm really happy with the things that this group is doing. I don't know if a hotel or a restaurant with conference rooms is the highest and best use. But I'm not necessarily tied to an optic for the sake of keeping the village a village. I'm concerned about what I will leave for my children. I'm concerned about what I will show to my friends when they come to visit. We have a very large event taking place here very soon, South by South Orange. And as I went around talking to a lot of the real estate brokers and agents, that this is a great opportunity to bring their clients and potential clients who may want to live here to engage and see the real tapestry of this town. I had to take some lines out of my conversation because they said, where would they stay? In a few years, my children will ask, Daddy, what did you do to make this a community that I want to continue to live in? And I want to say to my son, well, how about all those wonderful meetings and fundraisers we gave in those conference rooms above that restaurant. In a few years, my daughter will say, Daddy, what have you done to make this a place that I want to stay and live and raise families in? And I want to say, well, it's amazing. I think I paid to book the whole hotel for your wedding. And what a wedding that was. So again, I don't know if this is the highest and best use, but I know maintaining an optic for the sake of some office buildings is probably the lowest and worst use. So I'm all for it.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to be heard?
Bryn Dowds at 260 Montrose Avenue. I think between the two proposals, I guess, a restaurant, personally, I'd be extremely concerned about the parking. I just can't imagine, what would happen. We have, 35 spots, and if you have 125 people for a reception, that sounds like a big problem to me. Personally, I think, a hotel, like between these two projects, I think a hotel, it kind of does more to support the existing businesses of the town, since it brings people in and it doesn't compete with the existing businesses. And obviously, it does bring people into the town to help support the town. I guess hopefully we can look at the plans a little bit. I don't know what the plans are for the big meeting room. It would certainly be nice if that could be preserved. And I'm looking forward to having a beautiful refurbished building, no matter how we get there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Questions or comments? Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the public portion of the community forum. I will apologize to my colleagues on the Board of Trustees. I had indicated earlier that I would open it up for questions from the board first. So if we'd like to go through those now, if there's anything that you felt that you wanted the proposers to talk about. One other thing earlier in the meeting is that it seemed like we were a little silent up here. We have been going back and forth with both of the parties for a while. In the interest of full disclosure, we have all the financials, we have all the details, we have the pro formas, we have, in typical South Orange fashion, we ask a lot of questions, tons of questions. They have been very accommodating to all the things that we've been going back and forth with both groups about. I do apologize that we're not able to share all those numbers with the public right now, but please understand from our perspective, we need to hear the community feedback. We will be if the board chooses to move in an adaptive reuse direction, we will still be in active negotiations with these individuals. So as much as I'd love to share with them what our strategy is, we won't do that tonight. But obviously when we do come to some type of agreement, and one that will be publicly voted on. At that point in time, we will be able to share a lot of the projections that we've been running through. Again, it's not the immediate projection. We are projecting out at 5 years, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And then past 30 years, we have been looking at the various buildings and the facilities. We have been doing a feasibility analysis, which we received for police headquarters. Last year, you saw the presentation from the Public Library Board for their renovations of what they were hoping to do for the library itself, also the Knet building. Under Trustee Schnall, we're about to undergo another feasibility analysis for the Baird Community Center. So a lot of the comments about thinking about Village Hall as it relates to all of our other municipal facilities and what the long-term plan is to make sure that we maintain all these buildings, specifically maintaining the historic nature of Village Hall. These are all the things that we've been doing behind the scenes. So with that said, I'd like to open up to the Board of Trustees if there were questions that you had for the folks here tonight.
No, actually, most of my questions were answered. I do want to hear I know you wanted to answer the questions and comments.
Sure, I was trying to.
I do have a comment.
Go for it.
One of the other pieces that we're looking at these adaptive reuse for Village Hall, but the alternative to that we have been looking at in detail is the alternative of what if we did sell Village Hall, what would we do for our village offices? and that has to be measured against these alternatives. And that's another part of the discussions that we've been having and looking at what those costs would be.
I tried to keep myself organized. I apologize to the speakers if you saw me typing. I was trying to capture all the notes. Obviously, your comments are your comments, and we welcome whatever comment that may be, but there were some specific questions. For South Orange Hotel Group, could you come back up and answer the question what you would do with the meeting hall upstairs? Any of the documents that are provided to the village from the proposers, we will also have it posted to the homepage of the village website by no later than tomorrow morning. So for anybody, whether in the audience or from the viewing public who cannot see the renderings right now, we will get that up as soon as possible. So if the gentleman can please be as specific verbally as possible for those who can't see.
It is difficult to see, but the part which faces Scotland Road, there are, as you can see by the emblem, there are 3 major dormers. Each of those would have one of the larger rooms within the hotel. Then there will be an additional room towards the corner and an additional room further away from the corner towards the parking lot. So there will be 5 individual rooms on that side facing Scotland Road on the 2nd floor.
Okay, thank you. Next question. If you want to stay there, and let me just make sure I didn't miss any of the ones that were specifically for you. Could you talk a little bit about what you anticipate for the rooms in terms of price and what anticipated occupancy that you're going to have and what that's based off of?
The proposal I gave to South Orange included 62% starting occupancy, which is the national average. I believe that's very conservative numbers. I used a low price also because I am a very conservative person. Right now at the DeBarry Inn, I'm averaging probably in the $160 per night room rentals. We're well into the 80% occupancy. The management of the DeBarry has taken many different phases over the years. When I started it with a group of my Summit friends, and it was a fun project. It was something I really wanted to do, and I had been doing many renovations, many other jobs with friends. My partners, we whittled down to 3 partners now that wanted to stay in and continue to do it. One of my partners, if any of you watch TV show Mad Money with Jim Cramer. Jim is one of my partners. He's still a partner, very involved. He's been involved since the first day. If you watch his show, he'll mention he's an innkeeper once in a while. He's talking about the DeBarry Inn. I anticipate this partnership to continue for many, many years to come. And I expect the room rates to be very similar. Actually, with a brand new place, they'll be higher. They'll be higher than I can achieve at DeBarry. Plus the fact that my place in Summit is just too small. It's 16 rooms. It's not enough. I have many requests for 20-plus rooms. I can't accommodate. They have to move on to somewhere else. 30 rooms would be spectacular. This weekend alone, I could have filled this place just by my overflow. We do 100% occupancy Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays almost exclusively, unless there's a holiday involved in the week. My other business is, like I said, we're up in the 80 percentile as a yearly average now. And we continue to see our success. My problem is I just don't have enough rooms to satisfy some of my customers who need larger groups, conferences, weddings, parties, all kinds of different uses.
And if you can also speak specifically to your background in dealing with historic sites.
Well, Frederick DeBarry built the DeBarry Inn in 1880. He was a champagne salesman. I purchased the building, and I also inherited pretty much the same way this building is. It was gutted on the inside, except for the main floor. Most of that floor had not been touched, thank goodness, and I was able to preserve it from there. As far as the other historic preservation goes, David?
We are an architectural firm. Our office is in Summit. We have historic preservation certification among our architects. Almost all of the projects that we do are historic preservation in attitude. They may not be landmarked buildings, certainly not all of them, but we do an awful lot of residential work. One of the goals that we have is to make it look like we were never there, so that the building looks like the way it was meant to be. All of the experience that we have within our firm on historic preservation is to understand first what the original building was designed as, what the intent was, what the use was, and then be able to make adaptive reuse of the building in a way that enhances that original character and flavor and details and materials, so that even though it may have a very different use in the future than what it had in the past, it feels like it's exactly the right use for that building. And it feels like it's one building designed at one time with one consistent design idea, and that when people come in, they feel like it's really the right combination of old and new. In this building, it's a unique building. It's not, as I mentioned, it's not a highway kind of chain hotel. Just like in your homes, in my home, each bedroom is different. Each of these rooms will be different in order to be able to accommodate the character and the spirit of this building. And so there will be, for people who come here repeatedly, there will be preferences. I want that room on the corner. I want that room that's got the higher ceiling, and so on. That's part of the historic character that we want to preserve. It's not all there on the inside now, but when it's renovated, it will feel like this was the way that this building was originally meant to be.
Are there any further questions from the Board of Trustees? Okay, thank you. If we could have representatives from Landmark come back up.
You want to do it from there?
Yeah, you can stand. There was two questions specifically for you. The first also being if you can recap your background with historic preservation, dealing with specifically historic sites.
Well, my first project that I did that was historic as a contractor and an owner was actually my home. I live in a Frank Lloyd Wright home, rough shape. It's true what they say about the roofs. The place was really in disrepair, but we renovated that house. So that was my first. In Plainfield right now, there's probably 5 buildings that we have restored, completed. All through SHPO, we filed all the applications, have gotten approval.
For a moment with SHPO, that's an acronym, so and that's significant. So can you explain
State
what
Historic something something. But they're tough. So I've gone through 5. Some of them, the Courier News Building, 177, 185 North Avenue, 134, 136 North, 138, 144. A lot of great buildings. The telephone building that you saw, 109 4th Street. All historic buildings that we renovated, mixed use, thriving now, active. As far as hospitality, we're finishing in July. That building was from 1800s. That's Hotel du Village, and that's actually 28 hotel rooms, a restaurant, 2 beautiful event spaces. It's in 3 buildings on 10 acres. That'll be done in July. That had gone through historic. Ryland Inn, 1790 farmhouse. That project has gone through historic several times. We went through and renovated the restaurant. We went through and we built an additional catering hall attached to the building. Really, you would never know that it wasn't built that way with the addition onto the building. And we just got approval to build a conference center and a hotel on that site. So that was 1790, and that was, it took a long time. It was a long process for that historic approval, but it was a collaboration. I think the project came out much better working with historic. Snug Harbor is a cultural center in Staten Island, city-owned buildings, beautiful, beautiful buildings. We were involved in renovating one building, which is the Great Hall, which you saw the pictures there. I had actually did the original renovation on that going back over 20 years ago. Sold the property, or sold the business, maybe 15 years after that, and just recently took it back. And we went through another renovation there. So we do have a lot of experience with historic buildings. We just bought the Logan Inn, 1722, became an inn, 1727. That one we made repairs in the building, but we have gotten historic approval for a sizable addition. The way we did that is actually a different building that's connected through a little glass kind of, I would say atrium, but it was something that really unique how we got the size that we wanted and satisfied Harb, the historic, and it also enabled us to open up the porches. The existing, if you even look at the picture now, the existing building is wrapped with porches that were a later addition, and part of our plan is to remove that and open up the porches to the way it was and build this new addition, which the new addition will be 24 hotel rooms, and we're repositioning the restaurant underneath that. So in total, that property would be 40 hotels, a banquet space, and a restaurant.
Great. We also had a question tonight, and it was a question posed earlier today on an online message board, is obviously your business model entails likely a liquor license. Can you give an update on what your intention is?
Sure. Going in, we knew that we were going to need a liquor license. So we are in contract to purchase a liquor license. We've deposited. Obviously, the contract is contingent upon us being awarded, Village Hall. But we do have a liquor license secured.
And to the question that was posed about the cost of a liquor license, well, in South Orange, because it's very limited.
It was a lot of money.
It's
$500,000.
There you go. It fluctuates between $450,000 to close to $600,000. So it certainly is a lot of money. Are there questions from the Board of Trustees for Landmark?
My notes just showed one last question. There's a question about parking for large events for the restaurant.
Yeah, that's a big question.
Okay, obviously we want to have adequate parking to run our business. So the way we're looking at it, and not to get into the specifics of our proposal, but we're looking at after 5 to have use of that side parking lot. We run our operations via valet. Valet is going to enable us to get 30% more cars in that space. And we don't charge for valet, by the way, but it's a way to accommodate the guests, get in and out quickly. So we anticipate having the ability to park on site 100 cars via valet. Any overflow would be actually where City Hall is now, in that PNC building. Our use is after 5. So I think it's ideal for us to work out the arrangement, and we've talked, and PNC would work out the best because it's close.
Okay, and I think unless there's any questions from the board, I can cover the rest of the questions.
I just want to add one thing. We've identified probably 4 or 5 private lots that are virtually empty after 3:30, 4 o'clock. And we have started to have conversations with a number of those owners, and those lots are literally less than a block from where the hotel is. I mean, where the restaurant is. So,
they're in your head, aren't they?
He's a double agent.
They got in your head. But you had the better music. Okay, great. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. To the other questions that were, I don't think we need you any further at the front, but you're obviously welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. I tried to capture the ones to the parking issue, and I just want to expand on this a little bit more. For those of you who have been watching planning board meetings and board of trustee meetings, we certainly have our parking challenges in South Orange. We follow generally a shared model of parking. If you look at pretty much every single restaurant that exists right now in South Orange, they would not be able to meet the parking requirements within our central business district and our parking standards. I believe right now per 50 square feet it's one parking spot. So nobody is able to fulfill those obligations. For both the proposed hotel, boutique hotel, and for the restaurant, if you recall, what we did with the RFP was there was one lot that included Village Hall and the 35 spaces, and then there was the option to bid on the secondary lot, which has 37 parking spaces on it. So the way the board was thinking about it is that for some people they might need development in order for it to be cost effective to do the restoration of Village Hall to SHPO standards, which is the State Historic Preservation Office, Frank. And so that was the idea. You couldn't just bid on the 37 parking spaces alone, but you could bid on them together. Going back to both the proposers, their bid amount did not suggest that they were going to be able to get all of that valuable parking from us. So right now what we're looking at is just the one specific lot, which was the 35 spaces and Village Hall. As we move forward, we understand, to Ms. Pagani's point, that there's various different models in which we can try and work this out. Because again, when we are at office capacity, when there's a lot of people here, daytime workers, at night when they leave, it frees up some parking. There's also options for both groups, whether it's special events or additional guests for some reason, to work with private properties to take advantage of their parking, basically following the shared model that we have right now. There's also options for parking trust funds. When people can't meet their parking requirements, they can pay into the trust fund. We all contribute back into the shared model, but that's certainly something the Board of Trustees understands. Again, it's a lot of the questions we've been asking, and we're actively negotiating with both the groups right now. Another question that we received was, again, the cost scenarios. If I just give you a little bit more detail of what we're looking at is our administrator, we had asked him to project out to the best of his ability leasing where we currently are at, 76 South Orange Avenue. That space right now is not sufficient for us. We built in about 20% increase in space. Some things are very tight in there, so we would have to expand a little bit. Right now we are renting. There is a cost to being here, even though we own the building, obviously. It's lost revenue potential also for the Performing Arts Center when we are here on nights, whether it's the Board of Trustees, our Zoning Board of Adjustment, our Planning Board, or our Historic Preservation Commission. So we have to look at where our general meetings are going to be. They need to be televised. They need to be accessible to the public, whether that space is going to be here or it's going to be an alternative space. Then we also looked at the cost of building a new building as a part of, if we don't want to lease, if we have opportunities to look at some of these other facilities, build on top of them, renovate them, and add our municipal functions in there, what it would take based on square footage, cost, the increases that we built in based on the years. We looked at the bonding. We looked at the interest rates. Howard always has us looking at those interest rates. So we really do have about 7 different tabs, all pre-populating different formulas. We have not got into financial negotiations. We always anticipate everybody's going to pay the full amount that they're supposed to pay. I will say that we are going to be in active negotiations for all of the above. The original RFP that was circulated by the Board of Trustees back in 2010 At the time, it was a request for expressions of interest. It basically listed all the municipal tools that we would be able to leverage to try and get a desirable outcome for the community. That was repurposed in the form of the request for proposals that were put out in late 2014, again, for additional tools for the municipality to be able to leverage in order to get the best case scenario and outcome for the community as a whole. So all those things are actively happening. Based on the Open Public Meetings Act, obviously we can't all be meeting at once. As I said at the last board meeting, which was last Monday, it was such a short time ago, I was setting up meetings individually between the trustees and both the proposers to be able to ask one-on-one the questions that were coming up with them, what they were hearing from the community, obviously whatever concerns they have, so everybody's had a chance to be able to vet as much as possible, because ultimately these are the folks that are going to be voting on it. I don't have a vote anymore. Shucks. So that's where we are right now. And obviously, as information becomes available that we can share with the public, that doesn't hurt our ability to negotiate on your behalf, we will make that available as soon as possible. We started this meeting with a closed session. There are certain legal issues that are still pending. We're working with our own village council. We also have the involvement of our redevelopment council. That's ongoing. So we're not going behind the curtain to go make decisions. It's that there are certain things that we are exempt from talking about publicly for, again, the reasons that I described before, to make sure that we protect your best interest and ours as well as the village. So unless there's any further discussion from the Board of Trustees, we'll continue our executive session, and then we plan to kind of move forward on the timeline that we had. Our renovation bids are set to, I don't want to say expire, I don't know what the right terminology is. We were given an extension. They are good through the end of this month. So this is not something we're going to pontificate for a long period of time. We need to come to closure on what we're going to do, and we're going to have to move forward either way. So expect a informed decision from the Board of Trustees. I appreciate, obviously, everybody coming out, and I encourage the public to read the material. The video is obviously going to be posted to the website. I ask as soon as possible. We'll gather the materials that were shared tonight. We'll get that posted to the website. And for anybody who wasn't able to submit comments or attend tonight, hopefully they'll inform themselves. Send it to myself, scollum@southorange.org. Again, that's SCOLLUM@southorange.org. As you send me an email, I share it with all my colleagues on the board. So again, thank you very much. And unless there's any further discussion from the board, I'll take a motion to motion to recess to go back into executive session.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we're recessing.
And just to be clear, when we reconvene, no action will be taken other than to adjourn.
Yep, for anybody who missed that, if we reconvene, it is just going to be to close the meeting, so we're going to finish our executive
And
session.
we're not taking any action.
We will not be taking any formal action after this, so we don't need to be running the meeting video anymore. We're going to come back out and close the meeting. Thanks.
Doesn't matter, it's on the record.
I moved.
Roll call. We're doing a roll call. Just that we're, I'm here.
Trustee Clark?
Here.
Trustee Davis Ford?
No.
Trustee
Here.
Trustee Shaw?
Here.